Okay, so welcome back. Second week of cybersecurity. Hopefully that works okay for you. Couple comments first before we get started. Number one, reminder, homework one is due tonight. So it is up on Baby Learn. About a third of you have turned it in. And quizzes are weekly. 3 of you missed last week's quiz. So just make sure you get those done. I know sometimes the quizzes are hard. Several of you got 4 out of 10 points. That's okay. Hopefully you'll figure out the type of quiz I give, and I throw out the lowest couple scores on the quizzes. Okay, so any questions? Yes.
Are the quizzes so this week's quiz, is it over with chapter 2 or chapter 2 and 3? How do you know?
It is over material covered today and Thursday.
Okay.
All depends on what I get through on Thursday. Speaking of which, and that's important, Thursday's class will be pre-recorded only. I've got a meeting I have to attend, I can't get out of, so I will not be in this room. You don't need to be in this room Thursday. Yeah, I'll post the video up on the BB Learn. You can just watch it there. Yes.
Can I ask a question about this week's homework?
You can ask her a question about the homework. Yes, I may or may not answer.
I was really confused on the second question where it asks to list like 6 different types of one of those 6 of which only gets 5.
Sorry, so other people started talking, so.
But the book don't list 5 when it asks.
It asked for 6, you found 5. Somebody else was saying what it was asking about. Logical controls. Try and come up with a 6th one.
Okay.
Just try and come up with one you think might work. If you can't find all 6 in the book, there's occasional problems where the book does have that issue, and I adjust for it. Was there somebody else saying something? No. Okay. Understand, I have hearing aids, and so I pick up sounds a little funny in the classroom. So when people are talking, I may hear them more than I hear you. So, okay. Other questions? All right, let's get started on this part. And I did want to apologize for going so fast on Thursday. Some people said you just covered that material and so too quickly I couldn't take notes. Fortunately, I do make the notes available to you on BB Learn, the slides. And the recording's up there so you can go back and say, okay, I got to replay that. My son, when he watches most professors, he puts it on 1.5 times to let it zip through. He says he knows people have to cut my speed down when I lecture. All right, so make sure I got this. This is chapter 2 material, and we're talking about identification authentication. So what is identification specifically? Yes?
It's asking who you are.
Who you are. It's figuring out who the entity is that is communicating with, in this case, the computer system. Now, I want to be clear. Normally when we talk about users, we talk about people. But it may be one computer system talking to another computer system, and that is okay too. Actually, in reality, it's almost always another computer system talking. When I log into Amazon, it is not me logging into Amazon, it is my computer logging into Amazon's computer. I am interacting with my web browser, giving it information which then connects. We blur those lines, it's okay, because everybody's kind of understanding what's going on. But the only way to make sure confidentiality, integrity, and availability are ensured and protected is make sure only authorized individuals or entities are allowed access. What do I mean by access? I mean, they can read information, they can write information, they can modify the information, they can create or destroy information like files. They can execute a program, they can install a new program, etc. All these actions you perform on a computer system are done because you have access and permission to do these. But who is requesting the access? And this involves identification, verification, and authentication. We're going to a little more details here. There are some fine points we have to worry about. So there's two aspects of identification we see when I look at the literature, when I look at the research, when I look at the technology. There is claimed identity and detected identity. So I'm going to do the second one first. Detected identity. Facial scanning, other biometrics. So if somebody's walking through an airport, they have cameras and they can look and say, that's a known terrorist, let's call the police or the FBI or whatever. They do this at large sporting events and other places where they're concerned there might be a terrorist attack. They have photos basically of people and they try to detect them. It is not the terrorist going up to a computer system and saying, hi, I'm Jim the Mad Bomber. Identify me. Actually, it's usually somebody trying to do something to prevent detection. And you will see, if you ever read the news stories and look at this or look at the literature, people will do things like facial recognition techniques. Well, if I wear the right pattern on my shirt, it messes up the artificial intelligence detection and they don't detect me. Sometimes it even can make me effectively invisible. And so understand and I'm going to harp on this throughout the semester. People use machine learning and artificial intelligence for things. There are ways to deceive it. We have a whole graduate class that talks about adversarial machine learning, ways to teach that artificial intelligence that stop sign is really an ostrich. And you'll see those examples. You could see those examples out there, ways of faking out the systems. Because computers are only as good as what we tell them to do. I've been telling people recently, a secure computer system is one that does what I should have told it to do. Whereas one of my grad students says, garbage in, rainbows out. But that's not what happens in reality. Systems do what we program them to do. If we program it with a certain type of identity recognition, it'll recognize people using those features. If we just use pure machine learning, artificial intelligence, we tell it, hey, we got all these images. We say this is what they are. It finds a way of pattern matching that is correct. Sometimes the way that it uses is not what we expected. There was one where it was basically they had a certain symbol on their shirt. All these pictures of Hillary Clinton, I think it was, she was wearing this particular brooch. And the artificial intelligence machine learning system said, wow, I'm looking at all these pictures to see, how do I recognize Hillary Clinton? Oh, that brooch, that's it. So you could have Barack Obama wear that brooch and suddenly he's Hillary Clinton. And so we have to be careful. And I put these things out there too. Computer systems are only good as the people who program them. And people make mistakes. All right, the other issue, so that's detected identity. Almost always we often don't use that. We do use it as my cell phone. I got, fingerprint scanner on the back. It scans my fingerprint, says, yep, that's the registered fingerprint for Jim Househouse. It's you. Somebody else puts a finger on it, isn't. That's kind of a detected identity. So we do use it on our systems, especially with fingerprint scanners. Facial recognition on phones, people say, hey, log me in, just show my face. Can you do it with a photo of you? Have you ever tried? Try it, see if it works, if you use that technique. Some of them are smart enough to detect whether it's a one-dimensional or two-dimensional image they're looking at, others aren't. All right, so claimed identity. You're gonna say, this is who I am. Now, it may not be, I am Jim Househouse, I'm Jim AF. I'm Smart Guy 45. Whatever your ID is in the system, you put in a claim. Your email address. And it's like telling somebody, this is who I am. Maybe showing somebody an ID. If the ID is not necessarily one that is really well protected, really well secured. So I claim an identity. Is that good enough to protect CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability? No. Because any one of you go to a computer system and say, I know my professor's ID is Jim AF because that's his email. So or Jim AF at uidaho.edu. I'm gonna enter it into Van the Web. I'm in, I can change my grade, I win. No, that's not enough. Why is it not enough? Because bad guys lie, cheat, and steal. For some reason, people forget this. Oh, we'll just make sure that they enter the right data and then we're fine. Bad guys lie, cheat, and steal. You will tell them, enter a number, they'll enter green and see what your system does. You'll say, tell me your name, and they'll say, I'm Bob the Builder. Do I believe them? No. You know, I know you're SpongeBob SquarePants. You know, so just remember, when you're building these computer systems, the users of the systems, the other computers you're interacting with, the people you're interacting with may not be who you think they are. Could be somebody claiming that identity, assume they lie, cheat, and steal, and go from there. I have a good friend who was we went to grad school together. She was a faculty member here, then she moved on, became a chief science cybersecurity at Pacific Northwest National Lab, head of the information assurance directorate at the National Security Agency. Now she's off at Oak Ridge. And she used to always tell us, paranoia is an appropriate response. You know, some people would say, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't out to get you. But she says, you know, paranoia is an appropriate response. Be concerned. The person I'm talking to is not who I think they are. They are lying to me. If I can still say, but my system's still secure, I'm comfortable. I actually take it a step further. And I said, my adversary, maybe it's a nation state, maybe it's a criminal organization, whatever. They hired the guy who developed, the person who developed my security software. They took the source code, all the design documents, everything, and went to work for the adversary. If I'm still comfortable my system is secure, then I can sleep at night. All right, so can we even verify? Can you really verify identity? In the real world, we show an identity card, a driver's license, which has anti-counterfeiting technology on it, holograms and you know, a certain look and feel, and has, you know, identifying information and your photograph on it and your name. They can actually look, if they want to be more secure, they can look me up in a database and say, hey, there's the picture. Eventually, Vandal Star, our account system, will have all your wonderful pictures in it. Right now, it has about 6 of you. You know, because it takes a while for them to upload this picture. So I can say, oh, that's who that is. Because I am lousy with names. You know, you make, and to be honest, it's going to still be part of the master. But you know, you're sitting here, I see you every day. I may not remember your name. I can look at, who's that? Who's saying this? Oh, that's who it is. They don't forget the name still, but at least I'll have a chance. So we can look things up. We can look at identity cards. In a computer system, we have to verify. We can't just trust the stated identity is true. Can we trust some other entity did the verification? So right, all of you are in this class. I can go into Vandal Web or into BB Learn. I can see my course list. Or into Vandal Star, Vandal Web, and see my class list. And it has your names and your student ID, your V number, and some other information about you, email. I don't verify that. I don't double check you're really who that person is. I assume somebody else did that verification. I'm okay with that. When I get an email from you, an email claiming to be from you, I might be a little more concerned there that that's not who the email came from. And I might do some additional verifications. I had, let's give an example, CDAR, the Center for Disability and Access Resources. Students may come to me and say, I have a disability. I need twice as long on a test. I need 50% longer on a test. I need to the due date postponed because I had a flare up of my condition. I don't verify that. CDAR verifies and communicates with me independently, saying this named student has these conditions and things may happen. And they go through, one of my children went through this, you know, doctor's notes, copies of report. The doctor writes a note, this person has this condition. These are the things that could happen. I never, as a faculty, never hear the condition. I don't need to. Again, they verified it. So we can have this type of trust. We have to be careful. Because I shouldn't trust everybody who verifies something. A friend of mine, Matt Bishop, faculty member at University of California, Davis, wrote a great computer security textbook, a little too technical for an intro class. But in it, he mentions that trust is not transitive. He trusts his mother. His mother would never do anything wrong. His mother would never deceive him or lie to him. But his mother trusts everybody. Somebody comes to the house and says, I'm from, Amazon, and you get a rebate. She'd believe him. He's not going to believe just because she believes that person doesn't mean he should. And it wasn't that she was wrong, she was just deceived. And so we think about this when we look at our systems, how we can identify a person to a computer system when trust may not be transitive, when bad guys lie, cheat, and steal. Your identity theft, online identity theft. If they get my credit card information and a little more information about me, my name, my birthday, my address, they can spend money using my card. Actually, you don't need all that. If you have my card number and the little code in the back, the number, that's enough to use it online. And presenting that card number is a way of identifying, claiming to be me. Now, some systems also want you to put in your name, your billing address, a little additional information, make it a little harder. But presenting a credit card is a way of claiming something. Okay, 16.8 billion US in 2017 of identity theft with credit cards loss. That's a lot. So computer systems aren't perfect. We have problems, but we're working on it. Okay, so verification is kind of like they claimed identity, we're double checking it. I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to say authentication. I'm not going to just look at this. Verification is I look at the driver's license. Yeah, it looks good to me. Authentication, I double check things. It's like when you put in, give like a $50 bill, they might shine a blue light or black light on it to see if the watermarks are in it on your money. It's an authentication. Instead of just looking at it, it looks good, they double check something. Computer systems generally double check your claimed identity. And what we use is something called a factor. The factors are what you know, what you have, what you are, could be what you do and where you are. The most common three is what you know, what you have, what you are. So what you know, I know a password. I claim my identity, jimaf@uidaho.edu. It says, what's your password? And I type something in. I type in a PIN. What does PIN stand for?
Personal identification number.
Personal identification number. Do you ever have a PIN number? A personal identification number? No, don't be redundant. ATM is an automated teller machine. It's not an ATM machine. It's not an automated teller machine. That's the Department of Redundancy Department. Nitpicking, but just. All right, answer to a secret question. Now, the secret question needs to be a good secret question. I think I mentioned this one before, but Sarah Palin, who was vice presidential candidate several years ago, her secret question was, what city did you meet your husband in? Well, that was public knowledge. Wasilla, Alaska. So somebody broke into her system because they answered her secret question. For me, and this is not what I use, but for, where did you meet your wife? Hogwarts. The Shire. I don't have to tell the truth in my secret questions as long as I remember the answer. Because they're just secret questions with secret answers, like a password. You can pick anything you want. What street did you grow up on? Easy Street or Street of Hard Knocks? Pick something. Mockingbird Lane, I don't care. But not something somebody can search and find. Name of your first pet. I never put in the name of my first pet. I have a name I put in. Okay. It could be what you have. So instead of what you know, I have an ATM card, physical device. I'm claiming my identity by sliding that card in there and authenticating my identity. I have the card and the PIN. And we'll cell phone. I type in my user ID. I'm Jimaf. I type in my password, and then I get a message to my phone that I have to do something. I physically have this phone. The phone number is registered with the system. Actually, that's what we call dual factor authentication. I'm using 2 factors. That's why the app is called Duo, for dual factor authentication. Much stronger if you do dual factor. People can figure out my password. There are ways of, and we'll talk about that, but there are ways of finding out passwords. It's harder for a person over in Yugoslavia who's hacking my system and knows my password to also have a copy of my cell phone. Little harder for them. Okay, what you are, biometrics. More on this later, but they are fingerprint, facial scans, etc. What you do, the keystroke patterns. Oh, he's typing in this pattern. That's who this is. Voice patterns, signature recognition, or where you are. Maybe you can only log in at a specific terminal in a specific building. I did work for a defense contractor years ago, we'll say that. And we were doing security analysis of a fighter jet. And we were talking about authentication. You know, how do you I authenticate the pilot? He's in the jet. That's good enough. There's a guy outside with a gun. He's doing the authentication and the security. We're not worried about that. You know, they don't have to log in and type in their ID in the jet. At least then they didn't. Might have to have a smart token nowadays. I'm not sure. All right. Like I said, multi-factor authentication, ATM cards, credit cards, etc., can be stolen. Multi-factor requires more than one. Like I said, 2-factor authentication is common. You claim an identity. You share what you know, your password or your PIN, and then what you have, your smart token, your cell phone. So our dual factor, like on the Duo, was a good way of doing that. Huge improvement on single factor. Many security breaches involve theft of credentials so someone can fake an identity. It's much harder to do if it requires 2 factors. So many recent security breaches would have been avoided if people had used the 2-factor authentication. Not all of them, but it's harder for the bad guys. Make it harder for them. Okay, there's, you know, unfortunately, the best defense is to make be more defensive than the other guy. Or as we say in the fantasy gaming world, you don't have to outrun the dragon, just outrun the hobbit. You know, as long as there's another target, you're safer. I hate to say it, but it's the way a lot of people work. All right. Now, authentication. I'm proving myself to Amazon, eBay, Hewlett Packard, University of Idaho. Can they prove themselves back to me? I want mutual authentication. I go to my bank's website, I type in my user ID, my password, and all this. How do I know I'm really talking to my bank? How do I know I'm not talking to another website that looks at my bank's website? Oh, and they're using my user ID and password to actually log into my bank and transfer money somewhere. I want to know I'm actually talking to my bank. Now, in my bank, I do use dual factor authentication. Just a second. They send me a code. Doesn't always happen with banks. Good.
Isn't that like only a problem when people are using like phishing emails?
It's not only, it could be a problem with phishing emails, but it's not only the problem. I've seen time. So there's an old one years ago. People would try to go to the White House website. They type in whitehouse.com. At first, it would look like the White House website until you clicked on a single link, then it was a porn site. But it was a similar name. So people will register websites with similar names. If somebody types it in, that may pop up. And then if it looks exactly like a legitimate site, people may not know. Phishing, definitely an issue. So yeah, phishing website, I click on it. It looks like eBay site. It looks like Amazon site. How do I know? Can they authenticate back to me to prove to me they're really Amazon site? And then I know I'm good. If they can't do that, I don't want to go there. These are called, so there's a classic, well-known class of attacks called a man-in-the-middle attack. An attacker intercepts and relays messages between a real client and a real server. So again, these fake websites, user ID, password, We could even take it a bit further. I log into this fake website, user ID, password. It immediately in the back end logs into the real server, user ID, password. The real server sends back a secret question. Hey, tell me what street you logged on. The man in the middle text says, I don't know. I'm going to ask the user who's logged in my site and thinks I'm the real guy. What street did you log on? And I put an easy street. Boom, boom. Okay, it's a classic type of attack. And they can even do this in a way. There's secure communication we can do over the internet. I'll talk about this later. But I can be securely communicating with the bad guy's website so that nobody else can intercept my communications, except I'm talking to the bad guy's website. So I'm securely giving them all my information. Well, that's nice. So these are things to just think about. So common mechanisms we have, identification and authentication, or common identification authentication. So passwords and PINs. A password is a secret value known to the user, registered and stored with the server, stored in a special way, which we'll talk about later. Because if we store it, and people do this still to this day, which is appalling, because we learned about this 30, 40, 50 years ago, I don't know. It was in the 70s or 80s, but I think it was in the 70s. I wasn't a computer security guy then. I started my computer security work in 87. It's a secret value stored. If they save it in a way that's easily retrievable, somebody breaks into the system, gets a whole list of everybody's passwords, then everybody's hosed. That just happened to a major provider recently. PINs are simple. They assume you have physical possession of identity card, so an ATM card, credit card, whatever. So the PINs are simpler than a full password. My U of I password is 15 characters long, mix uppercase, lowercase, special symbols, numbers. My PIN is 8-digit number. Passwords must be hard to guess. They must be stored in a secure manner on the server. They must be transmitted in a secure manner between the client and the server, because somebody could see that email going across, see that message going across the network. They must be timely. What do I mean by timely? They must be current. I shouldn't be using a password from 40 years ago. Password 40 years ago? Yes, I did have a password 40 years ago. It wasn't a good password. It was password spelled backwards. I thought I was so clever. I was a teenager. I didn't know what I was doing. Okay. The storage of passwords, standard practice is to store an encrypted password on the server, usually using what we call a one-way function. So what we do is, let's see if I can do this a little better. We take the original password and run it through a one-way function. Now, a one-way function is an encryption function where you can't decrypt the value, but it is specifically one-to-one mathematically. So if anytime I repeat the password in, I get a unique value out. So we take that unique value out plus the identifier, and we store it in our password database. Now, so it's Jim AF with my encrypted password, XYZ 1 2 3 4 5, whatever it becomes. When I go back in, I give them the same password I want. It runs it through the same one-way function and compares the encrypted results. If the encrypted results are the same, then the inputs were the same. That's the belief.
Is that always true?
What?
Is that always true?
It depends on the system, but yes, the ones we use for passwords, it is. They're unique. They're on to one-to-one on to. Well, one-to-one. I'm not sure if they've been on to, because you could have possibly, 2 to the 32 possible inputs and 2 to the 48 possible outputs. We do things to actually make it even harder. So I don't know if I have it on this one. So well, let's think about this, because this is something they dealt with. Yeah, so here's the checking. Well, I know this one-way function is publicly known because it's implemented. Every Linux system uses, every Windows system uses theirs, every Linux system uses a different one. Linux actually uses a variant of the data encryption standard. Well, I know some common passwords. I know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is a common password. I know several others. Why don't I pre-evaluate them, run them through the one-way function and store them in a lookup table? Then when I steal this password database, and I'll be able to steal this password database, although it's all encrypted, I can compare and look, go through the password database. Oh, there's one that matches something in my lookup table. I know they're the raw password because the encryptions match. So back in the late 70s, early 80s, they said that's not good enough. We're going to make it harder. What we're going to do is we're going to create a 12-bit random value. So 12 ones and zeros, 2 to the 12th possible values, 4,096 possible values. We're going to use that to slightly modify this one-way function. So actually we have 4,096 possible one-way functions. In this password database is my ID and that 12-bit value stored. Anybody can read them exactly as they are. But that 12-bit value tells which of those one-way functions I use to create this encrypted password. So I can still compare. But now the person building this lookup table has to build 4,096 copies of that lookup table. And the idea was to slow things down. Actually, at the time they did this, the idea was way too much storage for them, we win. But that's back when storage was hard and not readily available. Now it's just time to do it. Oh, well, we can send it out to the cloud and have many computers to pre-compute this. So what you want to do is have a password that's not in a standard lookup table. You know, as I mentioned, I think before, when I did some password cracking for NASA, I had a table of 2 million common passwords and words. Then I modified them 250 different ways, or I had 250 different rules. Not all the passwords were modified these ways to create the full thing, but that would be, you know, tens of millions of possible passwords I'd have to then do this with, which could get big. So explain a little further about this one-way function. So normal encryption is you give it an encryption key. It's like a password, but it's separate. Encryption key and your normal value, your plain text, your unencrypted value, and it creates your crypto text, the encrypted value. To decrypt, you give it a key. The crypto text, it generates plain text. To break an encryption system, you need to find the key. The crypto system itself, the algorithm is publicly available. I may have the crypto text, so I need to find the key. I may even have the plain text and the crypto text, so I may be able to know what this was. It was the word login, user ID, and then we combine it with the crypto text. I need to find the key. A one-way function, here's an example. This is what the Unix uses for its one-way function. We use the plain text, the password, as the key. And we encrypt the value 0. And that gives us the crypto text. What's the plain text? 0. How do we break this? We need to find the key. Well, the key is the password. Here, you decrypt it by giving it the key. Crypto text key, I get my plain text back. Here, crypto text, and oh, the password to get back 0. So I need to know the password to decrypt it. Okay, so really decryption doesn't exist. This one-way function, we have the plain text and nothing else. Okay, and like I said, the seed is this 12-bit value. I was talking about Linux. It's a random value that modifies the crypto function, makes the attacks harder. So again, people are thinking about these things. Yes.
So one-way function, you need one password in order to get it.
Well, the one-way function takes my password and creates an encrypted version of my password. And given an encrypted version of the password, there's no way to decrypt it without actually knowing what it is already. So you're not really decrypting it. Excuse me, just a second. By the time the door closes, he'll be gone. But there was another question somewhere. Yes.
Does that mean there's no way of recovering the password? You just have to get the password?
There's absolutely no way of recovering the password. Yes. So when you're in a system where that doesn't save your password and you say, hey, password recovery, they have a different mechanism for you to reset the password. Any system that says, oh, you forgot your password, here it is not secure because they stored it somewhere. They know it, somebody can get it. Nobody should know my password. It never should come back to me. So, oops, That's, I gotta hide this. Come on. Okay, so what's your good password? Because we need this to have good authentication. You know, we need to use a broader alphabet. All lowercase, 8 characters, you have 26 to the 8 possibility. What do I mean 26 to the 8? Well, 26 times 26, 8 times. Or 26 times 26, you know. Why is that? Because the first one is 1 of 26, A through Z. The second one is 1 of 26, A through Z. So, you know, you have 26 times 26 possibilities there. You do it 8 times. That's 2 times 10 to the 11th possible passwords. You add uppercase, now you got 52 possibilities. Now you're 5 times 10 to the 13th. So 100 times stronger. Add in the numbers, 62 to the 8 possibilities. You're 10 times stronger, roughly. Add 1 of 10 special characters. You're 7 times 10 to the 14th. Make it 10 characters long, now you're 3.7 times 10 to the 18th. So 10,000 times more possible passwords. I say stronger, 10,000 more possible passwords. That means 10,000 times more possible password. So the work the hacker had to do to hack this one, when you went from 8 characters to 10 characters, you made their work 10,000 times harder. Okay. And it should not be from a standard dictionary, because I don't care how long it is. If it's something from a standard dictionary, standard password, something anybody knows, it's easy to get. The best way in my mind is to take a phrase that is known to you and modify it. You know, I got into Hogwarts, change it. You know, I got into Pigwarts. It's something I'll remember, change, you know, upper and lowercase, number, special symbol. The special symbol's not at the end. You know, that's good. If we look at the numbers here, if I could try 1 million passwords per second on my computer system, not unreasonable, I could find 2 to the 11th passwords as low as 1 in 30 minutes. I could just try all 2 to the 11th, called a brute force attack, and finally find that one that matches. 5 to the 10 to 13th, the next one in 6 days, 22 days, 83 days, 1,187 years. I feel a little more comfortable about that last one. So I was talking to this friend of mine who I said was head of research at NSA about this. I said, how long should our passwords last? And one, we know computer systems are getting faster. So what, you know, back in the 1980s when I was doing, it's like, this would have taken 10,000, 100,000 years to do. Now it takes 1,000 years. And she says, well, what if a rogue nation obtains a data file, an encrypted data file on how to build a nuclear weapon, steals it somehow from someone? How long do we want them to take before they can decrypt it? Is 10 years good enough? 20? 50? She says, we want US government secrets like at that level to last more than 50 years. That's our goal. She says, probably for nuclear weapon stuff, we want it a whole lot longer than 50 years. Because if they stole that data back in the 1980s, we're getting close. 1970s, we're even closer. 60s, we're in trouble. Okay, what about access to multiple systems? I've got eBay, I've got Amazon, I got my bank, I got the U of I. It's best to use a unique password for every single one of those. Oh, you got to be kidding me, right? How many different passwords do I have? Or systems do I access? Hundreds. I'm not going to remember hundreds of passwords. I guarantee that. I'm not that good. So what I do is for a website, I pick something about the site I remember. You know, so say I wanted to use Steam Online. Gaming, right? So I got into Pigwarts, I got into Pigwarts at H2O Web. You know, Wells Fargo Bank, I got into Pigwarts for Stagecoach for Wells Fargo, dollar. I know something about these that I would remember in some way or another, and I can use the beginning part the same and then change it. Or maybe I put H2O Web at, I got, you know, something. So I pick a pattern. The pattern, I know how to then combine these two things. And I know how to derive whatever I need from those websites. I now have a unique password for every single website. You could even go for something further. I wouldn't do this one. You could take the first 3 letters of the website's name and use that in here somehow. But then if somebody gets a couple of your passwords, they can detect the pattern. Depends how secure you want to be. Okay, how about biometrics? Fingerprint scanner, iris scanner, facial recognition. There's several things we need to do. If I'm going to use a biometric to verify an identity, it needs universality. Everybody needs it. We insist you have a fingerprint scanner. You better have fingers. You know, how unique is it per person? Actually, fingerprints aren't as unique as we used to think. And so there can be duplications between fingerprints. Permanence, can it change? You know, hey, I'm gonna use a biometric. I'm gonna look at their hair color, hair length, facial amount of facial hair. For some of us, that's easy to change. For me, give me a day or two, facial hair will change. Head hair, I can change the color. The amount have to be a wig. Collectability, how do we collect the data? How do we store it? How reliable and fast is the mechanism? I know some of the early fingerprint scanners, I had to move my finger back and forth constantly before it could finally get a measurement. And that was really frustrating. And do people mind acceptability? Think about, there was a comic, yes, you know, where the guy did everything, you know, had to drop his drawers, you know, do everything. You know, I don't want people poking me and drawing my blood. But that's a strong type of biometric because you can do a DNA test and everything. And also slow, DNA tests are slow. But people don't want these things. Personally, I hate anything near my eye. It's just something that really bothers me. And I punch more than one eye doctor because I've done things too close to my eyes, just a reflex. So what I do is, you know, this close to a camera, I could be fine with. Right. Any closer, I'd have some issues. It's acceptable to most people, but not me. But then people with glasses, suddenly it doesn't work because it reflects. And circumvention, we get around it. Fingerprint scanner, oh, it works well, except I got to copy your fingerprint from your glass. I put it on a piece of Scotch tape, put it on the scanner, it works just fine. You know, so we think about this. One other thing I want to look, the permanence, think about this. So when we have biometric, right, we're saying, oh, it's biological, it's biometric, but in reality, we take a digital image of that somehow and store it in a computer system. It's a digital value, it's ones and zeros. It is stored somewhere. Now, think about this, fingerprints. My fingerprint can change just slightly. Oh, I got a small cut. I've got dry hands. I put my finger just off by a millimeter on an angle. That could change the fingerprint. So they do what they call a fuzzy match. They compare and highlight, you know, several different features to see how many of them match. Well, to do that, it can't be stored in a one-way function because you can't do the fuzzy match on the one-way function. So they store my fingerprint data accessible. Well, somebody steals that, and if they can find, and because I'm using my fingerprint and it's sending the data over the network, if I do it over a network for login, somebody can get that data and send it themselves. So that password's no good. 9 more chances. I got to replace that one. And then what? You know, these are things we need to think about. Okay, we also look at measuring performance. So common in a lot of cybersecurity things, and specifically here, we have our false acceptance rate and our false rejection rate. So false acceptance rate, false positives. Yep, that's Jim's fingerprint when it wasn't. False rejection, that's not, you're not Jim. Yes, I am. I just put my finger on crooked, or I got a cut. You know, we need to optimize these so we have a low false acceptance and a low false rejection. And we need to figure out where that overlap works best for our system. Sensitivity versus level of security. Level of security goes better as acceptance, false acceptance goes down, sensitivity goes up as false rejection goes up. So these are just things people think about. Like I said, you know, what flaws in the system, what if it's compromised? How many different fingerprints can I use before I'm out? Are there privacy concerns? If I'm using my DNA, is there information about that? I don't, in my DNA, I don't want people to know. Can they easily be spoofed? Are they really unique, or at least unique enough? And how is the original data stored? Like I said, can we use one-way functions? All things to think about in terms of the security of the biometric systems. Questions? So this is just I claim an identity. I'm now trying to authenticate. Yep, that identity is who you are. And we have some other ways of doing it if it's one computer system to another, cryptographic ways I'll talk about later when we get to crypto section. Okay. We also have hardware tokens. So this is actually a copy of one I use. Faculty and staff can get these for Duo Mobile. So, you know, on the Duo Mobile, it says enter an ID. It's that number in the lower right. I push this button, I get a number. I type in the number. Now, this number, when I change it, this is 641,966. It doesn't go to 641,967. It changes to another pseudo-random number, a completely different number. Every time I push the button, I get another number. It goes through a sequence of these that's pseudo-random. Pseudo-random is not truly random, it's repeatable. The server knows what the last one I used was when I authenticated. It knows what the next 10 are. And the one I type in better be one of those 10. Why one of those 10? Why not the next one? Hit the button more than once in mistake. Yeah, that happens in my pocket all the time. My keys will click the button. Was there another? Yeah.
If you like click the button enough times.
Yeah, if I click the button enough times, it's no longer valid. I have to go back to the university and re-register the device with the university using a completely different mechanism. So it has what we call window valid codes, a sequence, whether it's 10 or 20, depends on the system, how the system is configured. Now, I've got this number on my phone. If I open up Duo Mobile, I don't know if any of you have ever done this, and I probably can't show it well. It says, you know, University of Idaho here. Okay, let me do that better. Okay, let's see if I can get, how big can I get this picture? That's much smaller. Okay, stop share. There we go. So it shows like that. I can push and it shows a number. Just push it and it pops up a number. I hit it and it resets the number. That's a different number than my physical device has. Okay, now I got to quickly log into the system 10 more times. So that number is no longer valid. I just realized that. But you know, these things, this is how this happens. And so we have that ability. So I have my phone Duo registered with that. I have the physical device registered with that. I also have my office phone number. So another option for me when I do the login is the office phone number can be used to say, hey, this is where you are. So that's like what you have, it's where you are. Somebody has to physically be at that in my office where that number is to register. Now, some of these devices do it on a time basis where it's every 30, 60 seconds, the number changes. All right. Okay, that's it for that one. I should have just stopped there. So any questions, comments, concerns about that? Yes.
Been hearing something about a first country that is be able to use cloud computer, quantum computing is going to be in a very good position because that means that the secrets of every other country are basically going to be up for grabs.
Okay.
It's going to be a.
Yeah, so quantum computing is a really interesting problem space. There's something they call quantum crypto, which isn't cryptography. We'll can deal with that later. It's quantum key distribution, where you're using quantum computers to share keys. And we'll talk about that later with crypto stuff. The question is, how easily can a quantum computer be used to break the encryption system? Quantum computers can do things in parallel, simultaneously. Some things easier than others. We know we did an experiment where we found the worst case speed up of a quantum computer would be a square root speed up. In other words, okay, it used to take you 100 times. Let's do the square root of 100. Now it takes you 10 times to do something. You know, it takes you a million seconds to perform something. A quantum computer would take you a square root of that, 1,000 seconds. So we did that, part of that study for the NSA back in 2000, I think it was. Some crypto systems they think it will even be a better speed up than that. But still, square root speed up is pretty good. So yes, and my friend at the NSA, she was saying that, yeah, they're doing research on post-quantum crypto. After assuming you have a really good crypto quantum computer available, can you still break it? Now, is this crypto still unbreakable? Now, the best thing is for doing this, say I have a 512-bit encryption key. A quantum computer needs, we think, 1024 bits. It has to be a 1024-bit parallel bit quantum computer to break that 512-bit key. We're not sure about that yet. The original algorithm they used to break a type of crypto required that. People think they may have found, for some algorithms, ways to be faster. Well, the biggest quantum computer is about 128 bits, so we got a ways to go. But we're trying to figure that out. So I'm going to do a 4096-bit key because they're never going to get a quantum computer that big. Maybe. So we'll see that. Other questions? Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, and I'm gonna step away from the textbook a little bit. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about. First is we do have a cyber defense club at the university that does competitions. So I will get the contact information for them, and I'll post an announcement to the class. They're trying to find a room right now to meet in. They meet once a week in the evenings, and they do a lot of practice, cyber defense type practice. They are looking for new members. So I'll send that out to the class. Second, yeah.
How, like, if you're pretty beginner, will they still let you in? Or,
You're what?
like, very new to it?
So at the last year's president, I haven't talked to this year's president. Last year's president would take anybody because today's freshmen are, in a couple of years, they're the seniors and the most advanced students. You got to start somewhere. So he did a bunch of training and teaching of people. He's graduated now, so I'm not sure on the current one. Second, speaking of clubs, there's been discussion among some people to start a new club, specifically women in cybersecurity. Now, it's a women in cybersecurity club. However, it isn't just women, it's women and those who support women. So, and I say that because there's a lot of, let's see, how'd one of my colleagues say it? So for women to be successful in computer science, they had a no jerk zone. There's a lot of guys, I hate to say guys, who are jerks, and they feel they're better than the women and they treat the women poorly. And we have a lower representation of women in computing and in cybersecurity. And yet I'll tell you, some of the brightest people I know in cybersecurity are women. And several helped me in my career. I see no problem with that, but some people do. So anyway, this supports, and it builds a network of women across in the cybersecurity community. It's an international organization. It was created by a faculty member at Tennessee Tech. And so she and I were talking at a conference 2 years ago, and she says, you guys really got to get, a club going. So we had some discussion with some students who then graduated, but I wanted, if anybody's interested, I'll send an announcement out about that too and have people email. All right, third, and now this, I'm going to give people a chance to leave if you want to leave. I am now going to talk about a little about the cybersecurity degree here, the undergraduate degree, and what we're looking for forward. Some of you are seniors and don't care. Some of you, there's a criminology major in here, there's an electrical engineering major, a business math major. So I'm going to pull up that slide. If you want to leave, fine. If you want to stay, fine. All right, pull that up. I'm going to make this document available to everybody. This was our last update in January, so I got to look at it. It was our frequently asked questions, and some of you I know already have this. But I'm going to just go. So in this document, we have a list of the required courses. This is in the catalog. But what I wanted to show you, and I just realized I'm not sharing this on video, so I should do that. So color coded in here, the red are the true cybersecurity classes, the blue of computer science. This is our recommended schedule for how we're doing things. Now, you're in this class now. The way it's currently designed, and you see these numbers up here, This is a new degree. It technically started last year. So although we tried for years to get it going, summer of 2020, they said, finally, we got permission. Yes, you can do it. Oh, by the way, you're starting in fall of 2020, after we had our teaching schedules all set. So the first version of this class was actually taught in spring. And then I taught it again to a bunch of high school teachers this summer for dual credit. Now I'm teaching it, so three semester, quote unquote, times in a row. Anyway, the classes listed here with these dates are going to be technically the first time we guarantee they're going to be offered. So Cyber 210, this is the first time I'm offering it this fall 2021. Cyber 220, we technically did offer it last semester, but the first scheduled one is for the spring. All these 300 level, the first time planned for them to be offered is junior year, fall 2022, et cetera. So we have one small change that is going through the system, not yet approved. So we required all our students to take CS 112. Well, some students just jump into CS 120. The committee is saying, well, we told you you need to take 112. There's another class called CS 212, which is Python programming, which will be offered this spring. And we're telling students, you skip 112, you should take 212. And everybody who does computer security really should do Python anyway, because so many of the tools out there use Python. All right, so we have the required cybersecurity classes. So this class, cybersecurity management, is more about planning and from a business point of view, less technical point of view, but incident response plans, you know, what's your ethics plan? What's your incident response? What's your security posture? What are your resources that you need to protect? We'll hint at some of that this semester. Cyber 220 is secure coding. Now, after you've done several of these CS courses, can you write better code than the rest of the CS majors? Then we have intermediate cybersecurity. Actually, I think we're technically calling that now technical foundations of cybersecurity. So much more in-depth dive to some of the topics we talk in this class. Networking fundamentals. How do networks really work? And then a lab, a 1 hour, you know, a 3-credit lab. Then network defense. So how do you defend the networks? We currently offer this as network security, but we're modifying it a little because now we can assume you've got networking fundamentals, operating system defense, and again, more lab. And then a seminar professional development thing, cybersecurity ethics, white hat ethics, several other things we're talking about there. I don't know exactly what we're covering yet because we're not going to teach it for a couple of years. Computer network forensics and senior design. We have a 1-year senior design sequence. And one of my favorites, software vulnerability analysis. How do you analyze the system, find vulnerabilities? In addition, we have the standard computer science programming 1 and 2. This is computer organization architecture is basic digital logic and assembly language programming, how basic microprocessors work. When I taught this course years ago, I had a student complain that's not a real processor. You only have 16 instructions. So I brought the Intel programmers manuals, the 3,000 pages of Intel programmers manuals. I said, well, I could teach you the 1,500 assembly language instructions in Intel for this class. Which way do you want to go? And then I brought the Cell Broadband Processor manual. Cell Broadband Processor, which was in the PlayStation 3, had 560 different unique registers in it. And registers are specifically memory cells in a program that you use. Most processors have a couple dozen. Do you want to memorize those? You know, the manuals? Anyway, real world things are really complicated. We teach you the basics, but then you can read the manuals and read and read and read. 240 is operating systems. How do you install Windows and Linux, but how do they work? And system software. How do you use the operating system tools to really do what you want? And software engineering. How do you build large projects? This apparently just went to 4 credits, so we're modifying this as well. That's why I got to update this. Then you have your electives. You know, discrete math is required. So let's go to math, actually. Discrete math is required. Survey of calculus or Calc 1. and I'm sorry. The reason I'm saying I'm sorry is I fought and lost. I don't believe calculus belongs in this curriculum. I'm going to be honest with you. So I was a triple major as undergrad, mathematics, computer science, and physics. I did a lot of calculus and physics. After I went to grad school, the next time I used calculus was when my son was taken in high school and needed help on his homework. And he comes to me, I don't understand what the instructor taught last week. Can you explain it to me? Let's see, I don't remember what the instructor taught 20 years ago. Sure, I should be able to help you. And I did, but it took a while to get the refresh. So I tried to read. Anyway, sorry. Stats, 251 or 301. 301 is probability in statistics. It's more of the statistics used in cryptography, more of the statistics used by computer scientists, but a lot of people will do the basic statistical methods with a biology degree or something, or took it as a transfer credit, so we put that in. That's it for math. And then science, just university requirements for science and humanities, social science, except we do require you to take ethics. I'll say, yeah, ethics. My son was taking ethics. So all three of my sons went to school here. And this is my youngest son, and my oldest one also took it. Middle one didn't. Middle one was an English major. He took other things. The youngest one came and said, I was struggling on the ethics homework. We had the classic ethics problem. A train or trolley is going down the track. You got to switch. You can go track left or track or right track. The track you're on, there's an elderly couple stuck on the track. The other track has a woman with a baby in a stroller stuck on the track. What do you do? Right? You have the ability to switch which track you're on ethically. What do you do? Right? And he said, the teacher gave me 0 points, but I told the truth. I gave the right answer. And I said, well, and he told his brother, the brother said, what was the answer? He said, the answer was I'd freeze up and panic. That's what I do. But he says, but it's not real. I'm never going to be in that situation. It's not real. And so his brother, who was a computer science major, said, I got a different one for you. You work for a company that builds a self-driving car. Car is going down the road. There's a big barrier on the left-hand side. There's pedestrians on the right-hand side on the sidewalk, and a woman with a baby in a stroller steps out in front of you. What does the car do? You swerve into the barrier, crashing the car and killing the driver, hit the woman with the baby, slam on the brakes, but probably still hit the woman with the baby, or swerve onto the sidewalk and hit the pedestrians there. Real world problem. What decision does Tesla make in that case? They had to make it. What do you think decision they made?
Kill the driver.
That is the worst thing for them to do. They will try their best to save their drivers. They will slam on the brakes and hope nothing happens. But the people driving their cars are trusting them to protect the drivers. Now, of course, they've crashed in some emergency vehicles lately because flashing lights confuse the self-driving system. That's not a true self-driving system. The person was in the back seat, So we have ethics because you got to think about that. You find a vulnerability in a computer system, what do you do? Those are types of things that we got to think about. All right. Some of you have come in with a whole lot of college credit already. AP credits, other things, or you're transfer students. You're looking to say, yeah, but I finished my science elective. I finished all my humanities, social science electives. What am I going to do? So on this document, we looked at, these are the requirement classes, and prerequisites. If we compared cybersecurity only and cybersecurity and computer science as a double major, we said, well, what do you do? Let's look at the electives. You should choose from computer science more restricted list of science electives, not the general cybersecurity electives. Here we said, hey, Calc 1 or Calc 2, computer science, calculus for non-engineers or engineering calculus. Computer science requires engineering Calc 1 and 2. You take that. Either computer science is stat 3-1. So not much of a difference yet. The professional class, what computer science has their own, we're gonna figure that one out before that's offered. Senior design computer science has its own. We'll cross list and figure it out so you don't have to have double. Computer science needs 4 technical electives. Well, they should be the cybersecurity classes, 310, 330, 340, 350. We allow that. Computer science adds math 330, so we have to put in there. CS 210, 360, 385, 395, and compilers. 445 is compilers. Minimum 120 credits, not including math 108, English 101, 109, 20 free electives. Here, basically, there's gonna be no free electives, but you could do it. And so we have several students who are in the spring class who are our first group of cybersecurity students, and most of you would be the second, are gonna, some of them are gonna double major. So it is an option. Talk to an advisor if you're interested in doing that. We are gonna support it in any way, shape, or form we can. Nice thing is the computer science classes are offered every semester, the required classes. Not true, the cyber classes. Why? There's 12 cybersecurity or 13 cybersecurity sophomores right now. We can't split a class and have it both fall and spring for those 12 students. Right now, 30 of you are cybersecurity majors. There's more than 30 in this room right now. Some of you may are considering it. I do know we've talked to a couple of international students. The US government has not allowed us to offer cybersecurity major to international students yet. But they're working. We submitted the paperwork this summer. We're just waiting for them to say yes. Apparently we have to offer it to US citizens first. Well, we did that in the spring. And we have 13 of them. So we don't have to graduate them, but we have to do this. But people who are in that situation can still follow the curriculum with a computer science major or a double major, and we'll figure it out within the year. If you are really planning on switching to cybersecurity and your computer science or electrical engineering or comp major, do it soon. It helps our numbers. Because they do a snapshot mid-September and they say, this is how many majors you have. So last fall we had 2 cybersecurity majors because we had just started the degree. Then we had 20 by the end of spring. Though some of them were people who were you guys who switched last semester. 1 or 2 of you was listed as a junior or senior in cybersecurity major. So one student I know is a returning student who had a different degree. So yeah, you're gonna be listed as a senior. We know you're this. It's a 4-year degree. We can't speed it up. So think about that. But if you have any questions about this, come see me, email me, come by my office, whatever. We want to encourage you to get the degree. We're going to support you as much as we can to finish the degree. So, I'm teaching 110 and 210 this semester, joint teaching with 210 with Dr. Song. She'll do 220 in the spring. Next spring, I'm going to do a grad level class, but I don't know in the next fall what's going to happen. But we're going to start rolling out the 300 level classes. So, questions? Okay, good. I will not see you Thursday. It'll be pre-recorded and online.